Welcome to Trekommendations. Each week, a wonderful guest joins me to share something they consider a gem from the enormous amount of content put out into the Star Trek universe. This week, the fabulous Jessi B from the Crusher Convo Podcast is our guest. Welcome, Jessi.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming all the way from America onto the show. I always appreciate that. The distance people
I,
are willing to travel for this show, it's incredible. It's heartwarming.
you know what? For Star Trek, we will do anything. It's totally fine.
Yeah. We'll travel 70,000 light years if we have to, but
Exactly. Yeah. Delta
but
Quadrant, wherever, whatever floats our boat or ship.
yeah, preferably not though. That's the point. From the comfort of home is always easier. So, Jessi,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. Of course, I'm sure you know that before we can hear your wonderful recommendation, we just need to set that calibration level. So, I have a couple of questions for you. Um,
All
they
right.
won't be about your favorite doctor because I feel that's too easy.
A little
So,
bit.
my first question for you is, what do you think is the best looking Delta slash com badge design?
Ooh.
And you
Because
don't
I
have to
got,
say the beautiful logo of Trekommendations, which obviously is a lovely design. You can
right.
pick something else.
No, you know what? Because TNG got me into Star Trek, I'm just gonna. I love the TNG. I think that one, for those 7 seasons, that kind of com badge works great. But I also like the Picard one as well. I think they did a really good job on that one. But I have to go TNG.
Yeah, with like the Picard one's got like the almost sort of two like extended lines on the bottom, doesn't it? Sort of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
more
I don't
sleeker version, I guess. But I just like the with the delta and then the ring behind it with
yeah.
the it's like silver and gold and stuff, so it's a nice little contrast. But so I've always enjoyed that look more. Um, but I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there, but that one's probably particularly
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. My mum will be happy to hear that. I think that's her favorite
Oh,
as well.
good. Gotta please mom.
Yeah. Of all the different first officers we've seen serving aboard starships in the Star Trek universe, who is your favorite?
First officers. Who I I do like Spock. I really do like Spock, but I like Raffi.
Oh,
You know,
that's an interesting
with
answer.
yeah, I love Raffi. I love how we only got a snippet when she was with Picard, when they showed the past flashback, but I like how she was able to keep him on his toes and things like that and keep him in line in a way that Riker I don't think really had the ability to do. But knowing that she's also going to be Seven's first officer as well, I think that role just fits her the best. And Michelle Hurd is just amazing. So yeah, I have to go with Raffi.
The confidence with which you say, and we know she's going to be Seven's first officer, makes me feel like you know something I don't. But
Spoilers. No.
yeah, yeah, we'll
River
be
Song.
playing
Sorry,
this back in the
spoilers.
future.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Final question for you. Here's a bit of a weirder one.
Okay.
If a xenomorph from the Alien franchise was to show up in Star Trek, which captain and crew do you think would deal with it the best?
Voyager.
Yeah.
For sure. They already saw a lot of crap. So they know how to. I don't know if you could see, my husband's a huge Alien fan, so for sure I would think Janeway and her team would definitely know how to handle. Not that Enterprise or any of them can't handle it, but for sure they definitely had a lot more practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Picard would have trouble reasoning with a xenomorph.
A little bit, a little bit. He would not know how to handle that at all.
Yeah, Janeway's shoot first would sort of probably serve her better here, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Excellent. Okay, good. I didn't know that about your husband, so that was just a nice, happy coincidence for the
When
question
you
there.
said xenomorph, I was like, this is perfect. His car's name is Ripley. He's
Oh,
gonna get a
really?
xenomorph license plate. Like, my husband's a huge fan. So yeah, we just came back from FanX and he got a stuffy of a chest burster. And he had like That's what got him into sci-fi, was Alien and then Star Trek. And so yeah, those definitely, mine's Doctor Who and Star Trek, so we have kind of a bridge. But yeah, he loves his Alien, so I know a good amount about it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, all right, we're both Star Trek, and you're allowed one other franchise, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll figure it out. Well, we're also Star Wars. I mean, my friend likes to call it non-denominational nerd. We like to just go around the different fandoms and enjoy whatever we can, because that's what's the most important. As long as you enjoy it, that's great.
Yeah. It's all space. It's
It's
all
all space.
space, right?
Yeah, you just can't hear the screaming in space. That's the
No. Unless it's Star Wars, and then you quite often
oh,
can.
it's Star Wars. That is true. That is true.
Okay, I think it's time, Jessi. I think it's time. So I'm just going to
Oh
add
boy.
to the screen my little clock. Oh, there it
Okay,
is.
that's not intimidating, but all right.
It's not intimidating yet. It's intimidating when it starts
Okay.
counting down.
Right? Okay, I just will look
So,
at it.
Jessi, in 60 seconds or less, could you please share with us your Trekommendation, what it is, and why you've brought it to the show?
Yes, so my recommendation is going to be the Star Trek trilogy books, Coda, which basically ended the expanded universe timeline to pave the way for Star Trek Picard. It was written by Dayton Ward, James Swallow, and David Mack. And the reason why I love this trilogy is because the expanded universe showcased a wonderful, timeline of our characters right after Nemesis, and it was a great way to end that timeline to get into what we have now. And it was just a wonderful way to end those characters and the new characters we had, and then just hope for more or see some more in the TV shows. But yeah, that is my recommendation. And yeah, so that's why I'm here today.
Perfect. And look at you, had loads of time left, so that's wonderful. And you were
Seven
worried.
seconds. And I was a little
So
worried.
there's got to be a record. It almost felt like you were kind of thinking, oh, I'm too quick. I need to add.
I mean, I had my idea, but I was all like, I still have to explain why. But yes, I was all like, I
Yes.
can add a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, now we get to go a little bit deeper. So Star Trek
Perfect.
Coda, it's
Hmm.
a trilogy of books, you said.
Correct. Yes. I actually
So
have the first one here just to kind of showcase. This is Dayton Ward. He did the first book. Um, but like I said, it's one of those things where a bunch of amazing authors came together and created this huge timeline after Nemesis had happened, and it showcased what the characters were doing with Picard, like Beverly, and little spoilers, but nothing too much. But Picard and Beverly got married. They had a son. It talked about, Riker being on Titan with Troy. Data ended up coming back in a different way than what we saw in Picard. Just things like that. And also new characters that really highlighted our favorites and were great additions to these stories. And what was amazing about this part is, Star Wars also had a huge expanded universe. And so when we got the movies, that whole thing was just erased, but it was just gone. Like there was
mhm.
no like explaining why it's gone. It was just like, no, they're books because they're not canon. It didn't matter. What I love about this is that they gave that opportunity to these writers who poured their heart and soul into these stories to end it properly, so then we can have now this next timeline or adventures with our characters. And the way that they ended it was just, in my opinion, perfect. So that is why I always highlight Coda for sure.
So it's interesting because it's so I've not read them. And this is again very much, it feels like I'm repeating myself because I say it almost every week. But this is the purpose of the show. Like this is what I want to hear. There's so much Trek out there, and you've talked about the expanded universe. Like that's the problem, right? There's so many books. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
audio dramas,
Right.
podcasts, whatever. And it's just like, how do I find? I pick up a book, I start reading. I'm like, this isn't good. I'm not going to read the books. You're like, no, that's a
Mm-hmm.
mistake. Maybe it was just that one book wasn't the right book. But I find it interesting as well. So it's not just that it's a good book, like it's a well written book or an interesting story, but it is the way it is kind of yeah, compressing all of this together, giving everything, finishing everything up so you can be like, okay, if you read all of that stuff, if you enjoyed all of that, great. It's not gone forever, but it is changing because now we're moving into getting more TV, which is something we'd wanted for a long time and we weren't getting.
Hmm.
But to me, it feels a bit like how Marvel and DC have done similar things. And
Right.
the the DC universe, they did like Crisis on Infinite Earths, things like that. They wanted to be
Hmm.
like, oh, we've got, for them it was a bit different. It was more just the quantity, right? We've got so many years and years of history. We can't expect new readers to get behind all of this stuff. So we'll do a big universe reset, but with a story. Like we'll make a
Hmm.
story to reset the universe. Whereas Marvel are just like, start again with number one on this one, I reckon. No
Correct.
explanation.
Yeah,
And it feels
exactly.
the same way, right? Like Star Wars were kind of like, no, they're legends. They're just legends now.
Hmm.
Oh, so they didn't happen. Some of them happened. Which ones happened? We'll see. They're just legends. Whereas here
We'll
you've
just
kind of
pick what we
got
like.
yeah, like an in-universe. I was thinking about it the other day with the J.J. Abrams movies, and I was
Hmm.
thinking, I mean, I try to be positive on this show, not critical, but I was thinking it's actually such a clever idea on how you could reset the timeline, start the movie, having, somebody come back in time, mess something up.
Hmm.
So now we go ahead and anytime someone points out, well, it's a bit different there, you're like, well, timeline got, but it just sort of, you know, I feel like they ran a bit too far with that.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
thought initially what an elegant solution to kind of
Hmm.
eliminate any possible, oh, that doesn't match up because you just like, well, timeline's been adjusted. Okay,
Exactly.
I'm in on this concept already.
All right.
You know,
Perfect. I got you
so I've got
hooked.
a few. I've got some. Yeah. I've got questions about the books now. So considering you've mentioned it's different authors, and you've mentioned that it's tying in a lot of the expanded universe. Is
Hmm.
it set on any particular ship, or is it jumping from ship to ship? Is it one book focuses on one thing and then the next book another? What's the structure that we're looking at here for the books?
So it's really, and when I mean expanded, I'm talking about like after the events of Nemesis, what
Hmm.
happened to our favorite TNG characters after the fact?
Right.
And not only just these three authors, but a bunch of other authors had always worked together to continue those stories. So I want to say from up to when they ended the series, the expanded universe, I want to say it goes up to about 6 or 7 years after Nemesis. So there's a lot of books
Okay.
there that just kind of explain to what the characters are. Now, of course, the focus is always Picard, Enterprise, E, Worf, Beverly, all that. But they do jump to like the Titan, um some DS9 characters are brought in, Voyager characters. So this is not just TNG, it's expanding everything happening during that 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
And any adventure, anything that's happened, whether it's, I don't know if they did Borg, but if it is Borg, that's what anything that goes on and that affects those characters. But it's mainly focusing on like the Enterprise E.
Right. Okay. Who is captaining? That was better. Who is captaining the Enterprise E at this time?
It's Picard.
It is still Picard. Okay. So
Yeah. Yeah.
right. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Um, because you were talking about Data coming back as well, which is interesting. I'm pretty sure I've got a comic somewhere, looking over there, that is Countdown, I think, and it was the one that sort of led to the Romulan ship going back in time for the J.J. Abrams movies. And I think
Uh-huh.
Data is the captain of the Enterprise at that point, which
Oh,
which
interesting.
is
I don't even
yeah,
know I
which
knew that. Yeah.
I think now it's
Well,
just out of reach. I can't check.
I know. And what's funny is like again, these books were never canon. It was just something for, readers or
Yeah.
listeners because I listened on audiobook to just enjoy and just have new adventures with these characters that we never thought we were going to see again.
Hmm.
Same with the comics, right? They're doing the comic books in between DS9 and Nemesis, or, just different variations of just more adventures. But what was brilliant about this is that you could see it happening like it could be canon. Like just even the way that they ended it, it could be canon, and it works just brilliantly with how Picard starts. So that was always what was interesting to me. Now, of course, me being a Beverly fan and always loving that relationship between Picard and Beverly, I was very excited. I was like, yay, they got married, because even the writers were like, we got to fix this. Like, we got to do something about these characters. That whole will there, won't there is not going to work for us. But still seeing even the triumphs and the struggles and really digging deep into the characters, like Picard's PTSD with the Borg, or just the issues that even Troy and Riker, them trying to have children. Like they always added these emotional elements that we saw sometimes, but very rarely in the show. And it just really expanded these characters a little bit more. We got to kind of know them and feel them a little bit more. And also just again, even on on Beverly's side, just the pain she went through of like just Wesley. Like, right?
Mhm.
Like, he was gone and a traveler, and poof, never saw him again. And so you kind of can see those little moments of where that affects her, even when she and Picard do have a son together. So that's what I think I enjoyed about those books, is that you can still love these characters and learn more about them. And I loved that these authors, like I said, who poured their heart and soul into these stories, got a chance to finish it, unlike the authors who did all the Star Wars book. They
Yeah.
didn't get that chance to end their stories. It was just poof, gone, like you were saying about Marvel and all that. So
Yeah.
and they really were like, it was like a year and a half. I spoke to Dayton, and he was like, we really worked hard in trying to do this. So had Dayton had done the first book, James did the second, and then David finished with the third one. And of course,
Right.
their structure of how they did it and put it together. And Kirsten Byers, who is also an author, worked on Picard, also let them know, like, this is what we're doing. This is so it was just a collaboration to give us a great, great finish. And that's what I loved about it.
Did it feel then like so there's a couple of things there. I guess because it's a book, you
Mm-hmm.
can spend more time with a character in the kind of their emotional state, or you're talking of Picard's PTSD because of the Borg.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got 45 minutes, we've got to have a problem of the week. We've got
Mm-hmm.
an A storyline, a B storyline, a C potentially as well. We've got all of these different actors and characters around. How much time can we have? And also, nobody has an inner monologue when it's a show, right?
Right.
You don't know what they're thinking. It has to be conveyed through facial expressions and interactions with other
Mm-hmm.
people and what they say out loud. And it would be weird if they were just, well, I get we've got their logs. I suppose that's the closest we get to
Yeah, I guess so.
them
Yeah.
expressing themselves. But when you're reading, you can write down how a person is feeling because we can't see it, so we need to be told. And so maybe
Yep.
that's how that gives you those opportunities. And especially if you're somebody like yourself that's very invested in certain characters, as we know, being able to kind of spend a bit more time with them, not having to move on immediately to the next part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that's something that is appealing, and why that format is good for you, particularly
Oh,
like
absolutely.
the stories. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious about so obviously you've mentioned Crusher and Picard's relationship being you know I guess getting a conclusion to what we saw for seven
Right.
years or whatever it was going on and on.
Something. We got
Um,
something. That's basically what
yeah,
it was. Anything.
uh, a better conclusion do you think than the Picard one?
Well, I mean, they were happily married in the books, so definitely better in that aspect. But I don't mind what they did with Picard. Um, I mean, I think it heightens the tragedy of these characters, and of course, that's great storytelling, especially for drama and like you said, TV aspect, the emotions that
Mm,
we're seeing. But I mean, I don't know. Again, I think it's just again just tragic. that
Yeah.
that happened, that like just that the fact that Beverly was all alone all those years by herself raising her son, and that to me is just hard to hear for a very important character. I mean, she lost her career. She just had to abandon everything to protect her child. And in the books, she didn't have, like, she had her crew and Picard and stuff like that. So
Mm.
it's a little hard to know what we could have had
Yeah.
versus what we got. But again, it's a drama, it's storytelling, and because Gates is so amazing as Beverly, those scenes that we saw in Picard were just, a cherry on top, I guess you could say. So
Yeah. You're like, all is forgiven.
let's
all
forget.
is
Thanks, Gates.
Yeah, all is forgiven for season 1 and 2 of Picard. You've turned up in season 3, and we're happy now.
Yep.
And I don't mind
Very
that it's
happy.
not what I guess. Does the book feel more, because I think people I think TNG fans were very happy with Picard season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them were as happy with seasons 1 and 2, and I think that's
Right.
clear. So if I was a TNG fan, and it's like, I love these characters, these are, this is my Star Trek. Everybody's got the this is my Star Trek. So if you're like TNG, this is my Star Trek. Picard season 3, you might say, we'll take that as well. As well, that's also a bit my Star
Mm-hmm.
Trek. But does this feel more? There's almost like a bit of whiplash, right, going from TNG to Picard, because of
Right.
it's just very different. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the same thing. Does this feel like a more natural extension? Like, this is more like what if we'd done an extra season of TNG, it would feel more like this book. Is that a
Right.
fair assessment?
It is. It is. You know, again, even though like our showrunners that we have now, they're Star Trek fans, and you can tell just by the writing and how things are done. But so are these authors. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
know these characters. They really invested the time to highlight moments that we didn't get to see or that they wish that they saw. So they're like, well, I'm going to write about it. And I think the way that the books were structured, it definitely was just a continuation of what we had with the next generation.
Yeah.
Different than what we got in Picard season 3. But as much as we love those characters, we're like, we'll take it. But the books were definitely more TNG based and storytelling than what we got in Picard for sure.
Yeah. And I guess the good thing is you can always pick. It's like we're saying, oh, the books. Well, I don't know, because you've said it kind of sets up the ending for moving into TV,
Mm-hmm.
and changes in that. But I guess at a certain point you can just be like, well, this is the ending I choose. My head canon is it's this ending. Like, I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
with that. I'll live in that parallel universe
Right.
where this is the ending, and it's happily ever after. And they, I was going to say, sail off into the sunset. I don't know, they warp off into the sunset, and that's it, I guess. Um, but if you are a official canon, I don't know what word to use now, but if that's your obsession, here you go. This is going to tie you into new stuff as well, I suppose. Is that the?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
It it
intrigued to know
it
how it does
is.
that. I kind of want to know, but I'm guessing that's a massive spoiler, so I don't want to. I
I
don't want to
know,
spoil
and
it
I'm
for anyone.
trying so hard not to say anything more of what happens in the
Yeah.
books.
Okay. We're not gonna.
So,
I'm gonna try and ask non-spoilery questions then,
okay,
or
perfect.
or questions that are like gentle spoilers. Like, do we get any new? Like, are there new characters turning up on the bridge of the Enterprise? Because I'm assuming, like, we've lost some, I guess, from TV. So
Yeah,
have we got people replaced? Well, who? So is Riker on the Titan at this point?
Riker's on the Titan.
Okay. So who's the
So
first
we have
officer?
his adventure. Worf.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he's come back from DS9, and he was like, I quite liked the red. I'm not changing back into
mm-hmm.
yellow. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm. So who's the chief of security?
That was a new character they brought
Okay.
in, and I'm trying to remember her name right now, but yes, it was a new character that they made. Um, and she was a very enjoyable character to kind of
Oh, that was going to
like.
be my follow-up sort of question there, is what are the new characters like?
They're really good. There's some that are like more tough exterior and like just get things done, all that stuff. That's the chief of security. And then there's other ones. I think one's name is like Chow or something, and they balance well
Hmm.
with the TNG characters, because one thing that we always loved about TNG, and I really can't speak for myself because I'm such a new fan, but I know with my husband being a lot, longtime fan, the one thing that we always loved is that all those 7 to 9 characters, so including Tasha and Wesley, they meshed well, like so good. They were just perfect. It was what does LeVar say? A lightning in a bottle, right? They
Hmm.
just worked so good. So how do you write a book when you're having to pick, well, Data's gone at the moment, Riker's now over here, Troy's over here. How do you get characters that are going to do well with them? And I think they did a really good job, because we now are looking at not only continuing the stories of the TNG characters that we love, but learning about these new characters that we can now fall in love with and see what happens to them and what's going to be happening next, and how they fit with the, I want to say, more of seasoned characters, like, like the,
Yeah.
Worf and Beverly and all of them have been on that ship for quite some time, and then the new characters and how they work together. So that causes more story and, more character development for the characters we already had. So I think a lot of, and I know like Dayton had mentioned some of these characters, uh, without saying spoilers, um, it was hard for him to have to end those. Now, I won't say if these characters are now mentioned in the new shows or not, but some of it was just like, oh, I don't get to write for this anymore, right? Because they
Yeah.
worked so hard on these new characters. These are their characters. This is what they created. So he said that was a really tough thing to do, to not be able
Yeah,
to
I
do
guess
that anymore.
it's different, isn't it? Because I suppose when they're writing Picard, Riker, Crusher, they're basically playing with somebody else's toys. They're like, this
Yep.
is somebody else's. We and they're doing their best. And I actually was going to ask you how well they capture the voice of these various characters, because that's um, I was listening to, I think it was on Trek Culture. They were interviewing, I cannot remember his name now, but the director of the Khan audio uh, podcast series
Oh,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And they were talking about like Tim Roth coming back, and one of the questions they had for him was like, does this sound like Tuvok? Because you've been in this character for so long, we're writing a script for Tuvok. Does it sound like Tuvok? Like, his voice? And he was like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it does. And it's tricky, isn't it? Because you're trying to write the voice of a character, and I suppose when they will have been people have been doing that for years, right? They've done that for all the TV shows, but the difference is you give Patrick Stewart a script, and he reads
Yep.
through it and he says, you know oh, I would say this differently, or I think Picard would say this differently, and they can make adjustments because they've got the people there.
Yeah.
Or sometimes maybe it's like, oh, I'm not even sure about this, but once you hear it in his voice, you'd be like, oh yes, yes, that's
Yeah,
very,
there you
very,
go.
very Picard. But you're reading it, or somebody's reading it to you, and so they need to capture the voice in a way that even though you're reading it, you're like, yeah, that he behaves, he sounds, he acts, he in the way I would expect this character to behave. So I guess that's the one challenge, right? You're playing with someone else's toys. Do they manage that? Can they pull that off? I know you're happy with the Picard Crusher thing, so that's that's one side. What
They
about
did
the other
well.
characters? Do they
Yeah.
feel, like Worf is back? Does Worf feel like okay? Actually, I'm glad I've picked Worf. So does Worf feel like a character who has gone from TNG to DS9, now come back, had all of the experiences that he had over on Deep Space Nine, getting married, losing his wife, all of that? Does that all come through in this character? Like you can hear that in his portrayal?
I think so.
Okay.
For me, at least, I think so. I mean, I'm not a huge Worf fan. Um, However, I did enjoy what we saw in DS9, especially with the
Hmm.
Jadzia aspect to it. I really do enjoy what they did with him in Picard, but I think it was pretty similar in the sense, I mean,
Yeah.
he stayed in Starfleet, obviously. He was the first officer, but you can see that he did things differently because of his new, like losing Jadzia, right?
Hmm.
Like those
Okay.
new things that happened to him. And I think they kept, just that Klingon demeanor that Worf always had, but with a touch of just experiences.
Right. Yeah.
So,
He's learned to
uh,
balance it a little bit more.
yeah, exactly. Geordi was a character that they didn't really need to change much because we never really saw much change, anyways, right? I mean, for me, Geordi was just kind of a one-dimensional character. He was just bad with relationships, and he worked as the chief of engineering, right? Like that was kind of, which is why
Wow.
with Lavar,
Oh,
I mean, that's really what we saw. I mean, Lavar even says it, right? He was all like, "If I'm coming back to Picard, I am married, I have kids, I'm like, I grew up, right?" And perfect, because that's what we needed. With Geordi, we're seeing him a little growth, um, but he was still kind of the same Geordi that we
yeah.
all know and love. And even Beverly was the same in a lot of in a lot of ways, but just the relationship aspect was added to it, and but that Picard and Beverly friendship and love and appreciation that was highlighted still.
Right.
That
Okay.
that didn't change. So, like I said, I think for these authors, because they were fans, it helped in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. So it made it enjoyable, and you wanted to read slash listen to more. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I listened to a book that Dayton had written the other day. Actually, I finished one of his, so I might go in for this Coda one as well now. So this is the good thing and the bad thing about this show is it's
We're adding
it's
to your
monopolizing.
list. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my list was already quite long, and seems to keep growing. Um,
Now, David Mack, who did the third book, he's doing the uh, podcast series.
oh,
So if
is
you're
he?
enjoying that, you're gonna
I'm
love.
enjoying that. Okay.
Yes, you're definitely gonna. Especially the third book is rough. He does a good job.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, no
Yeah, I
spoilers,
feel
but
bad.
just
Yeah, I feel bad because I can't because I don't know where these conversations are going to go. It's not like, and I can't go out and do research, so I can't be like, oh, so and so, oh yeah, they've done this. So this anything I grab is just off the top of my dome at the moment, which
Mhm.
is good and bad. It's a genuine reaction, but also I'm like, oh, I wish I could have gone out and seen some of the other work that they've done or know something more about them, and
Right.
but I don't. But I'm assuming people listening as well, they might not too. Um, but circling back to what we were saying, it's one thing to play with these other characters, but when you pour your heart into creating a character and fleshing out a backstory for them, and thinking, well, and I assume they know things about these characters that we'll never know, because they've probably, oh, how would they react in this situation? Well, I imagine that they grew up in this situation and they did this and that, and they probably have fleshed out a whole backstory that we get a snippet of here and there maybe when necessary, but that's about it. But for
Hmm.
them, they're like, no, I love this character. This is my favorite. This is my favorite character to ever
Yep.
exist in Star Trek, and
Yeah.
then they're mine,
Yeah.
and they're in official Star Trek stuff until I guess they're not
No,
anymore.
they're not.
So,
Exactly. That toy gets taken away
yeah,
and
put on a
destroyed
shelf and
in
said
some way.
maybe we'll bring it. Maybe we'll bring it
Yeah,
back in the
maybe
future.
not.
Who
We'll
knows?
see. One cool thing that I've noticed though with Star Trek versus little backstory for you guys if you don't know this, but I grew up with Star Wars, never grew up with Star Trek. Only saw Star Trek first time 3 years ago. So the one thing that I had noticed is that with, you know, Star Wars, if you were to create characters like they did in the expanded universe, that's just like, and then they got rid of it, that's it, done, put away. There's not a lot of collaboration. With Star Trek, there is. And so let's say Chow, I believe it's Chow. It's been a little while since I read the book, so the names are kind of gone. But let's say they decide to bring her into a story of the 25th century or whatever, if they decide to expand the Picard universe. They would definitely talk to either Dayton or David or whoever had created that character originally, and like, okay, how would we do this? How would we continue this story? What would be the backstory of this? There is a lot of collaboration with Star Trek that, in like you said, in Star Wars, it's like poof, gone, destroyed. Right now, Chow is just sitting on a shelf, and if they need her, they could bring her on. And they would bring on the author that created her and expand that character. And that's what's exciting. And that's what happened here. Like there was even collaboration with Wesley going from season 2 of Picard and Prodigy because they were writing at the same time,
Right. Yeah.
that they were like, hey, so he's going to say this, and this is going to tell the story of Prodigy in 3 years. So
Yeah.
that's what I love about the Star Trek universe, is that it's unified, it's together, it works wonderfully, that your head canon could be canon at some point, or your head canon can change because they decided to go a different route and it was better than what you thought, because
Yeah.
everyone is just working together and it works beautifully, which is why I love the trilogy, because it was three different authors, three different styles of writing, but it blended perfectly.
Right. That was going to be another question. Was is there like a I mentioned jumping from TNG to Picard is like a bit of whiplash just because it's so obviously because so much time has passed. It's just a very different, television's moved on. It's a different style, right, of
Mm-hmm.
TV or streaming as it now is. Um, but moving from one book to another, especially with different authors, is there a stylistic whiplash, or do they just very smoothly merge sort of one into the next?
They smoothly merge because each book, like Dayton had mentioned, they outlined everything. This was like a year project of them going back and forth trying to figure out how they were going to proceed with the story, and how they outlined it, like, okay, this is going to be book 1, book 2, book 3. And what they kind of did, and I believe Dayton explained this a little bit better than I can, but what they kind of did is like, okay, book 1, that's a Dayton book. Like that kind of storytelling of what we're going to say is Dayton can do that. Book 3, lot happens in book 3, and it's like, that's David can do it, you know what I mean? So like, and
Yeah.
then James would get the middle, because they do have their different ways of writing, but they also always had to work together anyways, because they were telling the same timeline. They were telling, just a continuation. Every book was a continuation of each one. And even in the audiobook, they would tell you like, in this, in this year this happened, and you can hear it in this book. And this year and this happened, and that
Hmm.
comes from this book. So it's a perfect little list. And
Right.
so even though the authors are different, they merge well together, but they perfectly assigned an author for each book exactly how it
Based on
was meant to
yeah,
be.
that's interesting, isn't it? Because actually, it's funny because you might think, well, hold on, if this is it's 3 books, but it's one story. Surely wouldn't it be better that we have one author pen the whole thing because then we don't have this problem. But actually, they could have done that, and maybe you'd be like, oh, they picked the one, and so it's like, yeah, book one's great because it fits to his style. Books 2 and 3 were a bit sloppy because that's not their forte when it comes to storytelling. Whereas it seems
Mm-hmm.
like what they've done is, oh, right, what's everybody's strength? Let's play to that. So you're going to do this, you're going to
Yeah.
do this, you're going to do this, and you're getting
Yeah.
and then they've worked together on it. Which I hate to do it because we keep bringing up Star Wars, but you think of the 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 most recent sequel trilogy where it was kind of you do a movie, you do a movie, you do a movie, and nobody's really going to talk to each other about how things are going to go, and then
Right.
we have to course correct after 2 movies because we weren't happy with changes one person made over another sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thing to avoid. Okay, excellent.
Exactly.
I've got a lot of questions, so many questions, but I can't ask them because they're all lead to
To
spoilers. I guess
spoilers.
the
So
only question
sorry.
is, should we read this book or listen to this book? You're bringing it on as a recommendation, so I reckon probably we should. It's I guess it's pretty recent then. I I would have thought when when I think of the books, apart from the ones that are coming out now that are like, a Strange New Worlds book or a Discovery book or like a Picard book specifically,
Hmm.
I think of all the books as being much older than they are. I don't know
I
why.
know. Yeah.
It just when people say I need a recommendation for a book, usually the books coming out are like, well, this one was written in the late
In
90s, the early
1994. Yeah.
2000s. You're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's good. But this must have just come out just before, like shortly before Picard, then, or
I want to say it came out like during or right after season one because they did, without spoiling anything, they merged the the two a little bit from book
okay,
and series.
right,
So without spoiling the series, the book had to come out
yeah,
after. So that's what I said. I think it was like during or after.
right,
And I
yeah,
know what was it? Picard season one was like end of was it 2019 into 2020. And
sounds about
so
right. Yeah,
yeah, and so that's when the books had come out. So yeah, really only just 5 years ago.
okay.
Yeah.
All of these things
And
make
the
me feel
and
old when we start talking about when stuff came out. I'm like, no, surely that came out last year. What are you talking about? 5 years ago? I
I
don't know.
know, I know. It's so weird. I just turned 40 and I'm starting to like feel like I'm old. Like I'm hitting that like I'm talking to my 17-year-old. I was like, "Well, back in my day." And I was like, "Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Can't do
Well,
that."
it's when somebody referred to like Next Generation and DS9 and all that as classic Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Classic Star Trek's TOS. Next Gen DS9, that was modern. That was modern Trek. And now it's like, no, 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 this is modern Trek. Oh, like, oh. But yeah,
That
so
hurts. It hurts a little.
that
Yeah.
that did hurt. Yeah. And it's easy for me to know how old I am because I was born the same year that TNG aired. So there you go. That's
Oh, nice. Nice. I was 2, but again, because I didn't grow up with it, like my parents weren't into it, and so I didn't get to see it, right?
yeah.
Uh but yeah, but I always knew what Star Trek was. Like I knew Spock, Kirk, and
Yeah.
McCoy, right? That was the
Who did?
fandom of
A
who
cultural
didn't.
touchstone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but more than that, I did not know much until now. Now I just dived
Yeah.
in
No,
deep and wanted to learn
I was going to say
everything. So,
you started a podcast. You went. That's how you
and I
make
can
up for the
also
years you lost.
pretty much, and I also blame Larry Nemeczek because he does so much of that behind the scenes stuff, and I eat that up. And there's so
Right.
much of it that I really learned a lot from all of this. But the books helped too in
Yeah.
expanding those stories. So I enjoyed every single one.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much for bringing this recommendation. I mean, I partially thank you, and then my free time is a bit worried and a bit concerned, but we're
So
thanking you anyway.
sorry.
It makes me feel like this question is going to be harder because of all the deep dives you have done. But I always like to ask my guest if there is an area of the Star Trek franchise that you would like a recommendation about from our dear listeners.
It's such a cliche of just like I love podcasts. I love listening to different podcasts. I love hearing new things. There's a new one actually this is going to be an accidental recommendation, but there's a new one coming out from a longtime listener and friend where he's mixing true crime and Star Trek. And I'm like,
Okay.
that's right up my alley. And so, it's just stuff like that that I just really like to immerse myself. I would hate to say I would like more things because I already have enough, but like when you had Ellie on, I was like, oh, that's the store of the shirt that she got. I've seen so many
Yeah.
people wear it, and I was like, where did she get it? And so that was always cool. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, just more start. If you guys got other books that I haven't dived into, let me know. I mean, even if it's old school, like we're talking, and even in the '90s, I'm all for it because I love storytelling. I love these characters, and the more the merrier in my book. But I will give you one spoiler that you're gonna be like, huh? So it's not going to spoil you, but you're going to be like, what does this mean? When, you know, the authors were making this trilogy, they called themselves the Wormhole Death Canon. I'm
Ooh.
going to just leave that right there and let you
Jessi, I'm not sure. I'm
ponder
not
and
sure if we're going to
wonder.
invite you back on.
And good luck.
I've told all the other people, like, don't think it's one and done. You know, you've got more recommendations. Come back on. We want to hear them. But for you, I don't know. You're mean.
I know I just
Okay.
ruined it.
All right, right. I know what I've got to do as soon as we end this call. Well, thank you very much, Jessi.
Thank
People,
you.
where should they go to if they want to hear more of your Trek insights?
Yeah, so Crusher Convo is on YouTube where I deep dive all of Star Trek through the eyes of Dr. Beverly Crusher and the Crusher boys. But you could also find me on social media, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and also you could hear my audio versions of my live episodes on like Spotify, Apple, or wherever you like to listen to your podcasts.
Excellent. So I encourage everyone to go check that out so you can learn. Yeah, I do like the expression "the Crusher Boys." That's
The Crusher boys. Well, it gets really confusing
that.
when you try to talk about
Yeah,
Jack. It's like, is it the father, the son, but it's not his.
yeah,
It's just Crusher Boys,
the Crusher Boys.
the Crusher
Excellent.
Boys.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Jessi. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I will be back next week with another new guest and another Trekommendation.